Don Shapiro spearheads the company's strategic initiatives and oversees all financial aspects of the company at Foresight. In addition, Mr. Shapiro is responsible for the following day-to-day business practice groups, which include court-appointed receiverships and bankruptcy work, turnaround consulting and development, as well as manages deal structuring for the following types of transactions: sale-leasebacks, 1031 TIC tax-deferred exchanges, installment sales, buyout lease terminations, and rent reduction negotiations. Mr. Shapiro is a CPA and holds a BS in accounting finance from Indiana University. Mr. Shapiro has over 25 years of commercial and multifamily residential experience, totaling over 75 million square feet and more than $6 billion. Without further ado, here is Don Shapiro. Good luck.
Thank you. Well, it's no longer morning, it's afternoon. Some of you obviously are quite warm, so feel free to take off your jackets, relax, undo your ties. We have with us today, if any of you watch the Food Network and the American Chefs, we have a pantheon of special servicers up here who many of you wonder what they do, how they do it, and what exactly is their mantra. So I have been blessed with the opportunity to moderate a very distinguished panel from some very well-known names, and those of you who have been following CMBS over the last number of years recognize that this is an area of the business that has grown exponentially, and there are many both opportunities as well as challenges in this sector of the business. And if you have not worked in it, then hopefully you'll get a good education today. For the benefit of the panelists, it would be helpful to, if you could just raise your hands, how many attorneys do we have out there? And how many borrowers or investors in real estate do we have out there? Okay. Accounting people, title insurance, other lenders? Okay. And then service providers. All of you, of course, know the phone numbers of all these guys because you're the ones who are calling all the time, not dissimilar than me. Two things that I think are very important before we start. Number one, we will take questions as we go along. I think the questions are far more apropos if we're on a topic and you can ask them then, so just raise your hand. And secondly, due to confidentiality issues, there are topics that are kind of out of bounds today. We cannot speak about any specific deal, and to the extent you want to ask questions about a specific organization, because there's been a lot of changes in the CMBS organizations, you can ask them, but the gentleman up here may not be able to answer them. And I think that it makes everyone a little more comfortable up front if we can do that. Now that said, I had a very nice introduction. I've been doing this for a long time. I've done well over 300 receiverships. We also have an equity fund where we go out and buy, but we're a boutique firm based in Chicago, and we handle a large part of the country with both state and federal receiverships and bankruptcy trustee work. And in many cases, almost everyone on this panel we have worked for in one way, shape, or form. That said, I think it's best if each of them explain who they are, where they're based, what their responsibilities are, and give a quick opening comment. And then we have a list of questions, which hopefully, instead of just stuff you've heard before, you'll get some perception and view and observation of what really goes on in a CMBS shop. So with that, to my right is Sam Jones at Catmark Bank, and he can distinguish between Catmark Finance and the other organizations. To his right is Eric Linder from Helios, a special servicer. To his right is Sylvan Rothschild, also a CMBS special servicer heading up REO for Berkadia. Next to him is Andrew Huntermark, who is involved in the retail area for CW Capital and is a team leader. And then to his right is Larry Smoller from Torchlight, formerly known as ING. He's also heads up REO, and we picked him up off the street yesterday. And for us, we even got him added to the disc. So we appreciate him coming on board at this last moment. So with that, Sam, why don't you open up and just give us a quick minute about you and CapMark, and so people in the audience understand what you're doing.
Sure, I'd be happy to. I'm Sam Jones. I run the REO group for CapMark Bank, and probably later on Sylvan will attempt to explain the intricacies between all the CapMark organizations and where they have gone since CapMark's inception. Our portfolio is a balance sheet portfolio, so it's not in the CMBS world, so it's a different kind of animal that we're dealing with. Our typical profile is a 3-year maturity on a repositioning piece of real estate, non-recourse loans that are all virtually coming into maturity situations between now and the end of 2011. So we're seeing a ramp up in a lot of communications with our borrowers. Our first approach is to try to work something out, and depending on the situation dictates where we go. But we cover the United States. We have one loan in Hawaii that I'm waiting for it to go REO so I can handle that one. We have one in Puerto Rico, but the rest is pretty much in the continental United States, around the rim of the U.S., pretty much following the locations of our production offices that were generating the loans at that time. Predominantly multifamily and office, but we have land, we have condos, we even had a trailer park. So you name it, we probably did it. The structures that you find within CapMark Bank are a little bit more simplistic than you would find at CapMark Finance. Through my group, we also service CapMark Finance generated loans, and the distinction is merely the funding source that was used to fund the loan. Those REO and loan administration is done here in New York and through CapMark Finance. So I can go on for like an hour explaining the different pieces, but I think that's enough for now.
Eric?
Yes, my name is Eric Lindner, and I'm a managing director and one of the founders of Helios AMC, which is a relatively new special servicer. We're just about 3 years old. We are currently responsible for around $30 billion of loans that were within commercial mortgage-backed securities, and are currently actively managing something less than about $4 billion today. What we're managing as it relates to our portfolio is very consistent with the industry standards, and one thing that I think we may touch on later is that a significant percentage of the loans within special servicing are actually current loans. In other words, are less than 60 days delinquent, which also presents some interesting challenges. We have an office, our primary office is in San Francisco. We also have a branch office on the East Coast, just outside of Philadelphia.
Hi, I'm Sylvan Rothschild with Berkadia Commercial Mortgage. Last December, Berkshire Hathaway and Leucadia National Corp formed an entity to buy the loan origination and servicing businesses from CapMark. We're based in Dallas, and I specifically handle the REO throughout the United States. So if any of you are here to overpay for real estate, I'll send you my home phone number. But if those really want to hear, the best way to buy product, to find product, both from a buy side and as a vendor, we'll get into that in a minute.
Andy?
Andy Hunter-Mark, Senior Vice President with CW Capital Asset Management. We are the #2 special servicer in the country at present, about 1,100 assets in special servicing, about $20 billion in UPB. We're named special servicer on another 120 deals with about 160 billion outstanding. We're headquartered in Washington. I actually run a group in Baltimore of 9 people, and we focus primarily on what we call special assets, although all our assets are special. And we typically handle some one-off third-party assignments, larger assets, more complex assets, as well as our CDOs.
I'm Lawrence Smoller with Torchlight Loan Services. Torchlight has been around for about 3.5 years. We came to being because our sister company had made investors up and down the CMBS stacks, and in their travels they ended up buying 19 B pieces. So they became the first loss position, and when the world started changing a little and loans started coming back through foreclosure and having some trouble, we created our own special servicing division to handle those 19 pools. We have 16 folks on our special servicing desk. We have about 300 loans that have come through special servicing. We're peaked at about, we seem to be peaking about 150 that is active at any one time. I run the REO group. REO is a little bit of a misnomer. I run everything that ends up being sticks and bricks decisions. Once we get a receiver on board and we need to help make real sticks and bricks decisions real estate-wise, whether it be asset management disposition, that happens within my group.
Thanks, gentlemen. Let me start out with the first question, which comes right off actually the agenda that most of you may actually see. And it says that lenders and servicers continue to be inundated with properties entering special servicing with no end in sight, which obviously is infinity, and obviously not everyone would, of course, agree with that. So who would like to tackle that? Is there an end in sight? And have you seen your portfolios exponentially increase over the last 2 years? And where do you think things are going in the foreseeable future? Let's go 2 years and 5 years.
I'll maybe start with this. We have seen a pretty steady flow, and I think a lot of people anticipate that it will continue given the number of maturities that are scheduled over the next 2 to 3 years. We are seeing an increased pace in resolutions. I think during 2009, given the fact the market was in such free fall, it was difficult to clearly determine a strategy that produced the best results for the certificate holders. I think there's a little better clarity now. I think the market is starting to thaw a little bit, and I think we're seeing a little bit more repricing. But nevertheless, there still is a flow, and there's still a dearth of financing, conventional financing available in the marketplace.
Andy?
We've grown from about 50 employees and about $1 billion in special to about 175 employees and $20 billion in special over the last 2 years. While my wallet hopes that continues for the foreseeable future, my heart that has to live in this country with everybody else hopes the end is in sight. We've not really seen it yet. We're still getting a fairly steady stream of transfers into special for various reasons, from maturity to technical to monetary. And I don't think we really see an end in sight within the 4-year period, particularly with the number of maturities.
4-year period?
Yeah, particularly with the number of maturities coming up and the lack of takeout financing available for that. Really what is the majority of our assets, which are probably 20 million and under, and finding lenders to step up is tough.
Larry?
I have nothing really to add. It would just be restating what's already been stated.
So let me ask this, Larry. We have a number of investors and borrowers out there, some who currently have loans with the master servicer and think there may be an imminent default in the next 3 years. And under some of the new laws, they can start making phone calls to you guys and saying, hey, I think I'm going to have a default, although they are current today. We have others who are actually in default. And others who want to buy some of these defaulted loans that may or may not go into foreclosure, have a receiver, and things like that. What is the best way for these and other people to approach you in light of the fact that there's only 24 hours in a day and 7 days in a week, and you have your own work to be getting done? What's the best way to approach you? Is it getting your phone number and calling you up and trying to talk to you? Is it emailing you? Is it trying to come in and do a dog and pony show? How do people get your attention?
That was for me? I sit at the other end of the desk, so when the loans come in, I'm not the first person to touch them.
You
so
do have the
they
REOs,
might
so
be.
people want to know how to get in touch with you.
For REOs, if you're talking about from the borrower point of view or for anyone else?
Anyone
the new
else.
buyers. When a property comes over to our side of the table where the borrower has, we've gone through discussions and the borrower is now either taking themselves out of the picture or just is moving out of the picture, and now we need to get in front of the cash, in front of the asset. At that point, we've hired receivers or we've hired property managers, we've foreclosed, and that's somewhat, it's amazing how quickly the news travels. But when we do, our strategy is to really understand the property, not just dump it on the market. Our strategy is to run the property for at least a couple of months and really understand what the problems are. If there are problems to take care of before bringing it to market, we'll do it ourselves, and then bring it on the market in a way where there's as little unknowns. So if there are tenant, if we take a property and we're not sure what the tenant structure is and who's paying rent and who's not paying rent, or if there's really a tenant behind the door, we'll find that out first. So when we offer it to the market, we could tell you who's behind the door and who's been paying rent, and who's about to leave the building and who's about to stay. So the reason being is that most of our strategy is to not foreclose. Our strategy is to, where we can, where we get cooperation with the borrower and we get a judge that allows us to do it, we'll get a receiver in that has the ability to sell. And by doing that, we were able to keep the loan in place. And it's a win-win in a losing situation for everybody. It's a win-win for everybody. We'll get, the bondholders will get a little better price because of the financing. The buyer is going to be able to, there'll be more buyers, a world of buyers who will be able to buy because there's financing available. And then the borrower themselves will have a little less forgiveness at the end of the day because we're going to be selling for a little higher price.
Sylvan, is Berkadia selling notes these days?
Well, historically, we have not. You picked a funny time to ask that question because we actually are going. Which way?
Microphone, please.
Yep. We are going to the market with a small, I think, 3-asset hotel-based sale here in the next few days. But we found that we're really not very good at note sales. And while there are those that act as advisors, we still think there's such a gap between the bid-ask. We're going to, in most cases, when foreclosure is the ultimate remedy, we're going to go ahead and expose it to the market and sell the fee. So we're not doing a lot of them. Maybe something we'll look at in the future.
And have you seen your REO activity, as we've heard already this morning? We've seen, of course, activity has picked up between 2010 and 2009 or 8, but would you agree there is at least more activity going on right now in terms of interested groups and buyers looking at properties?
Absolutely. And I'll also add that we've been very pleased with our volume of sales. So it's interesting, I hear a lot of rumblings about, nobody's going to the market with product. Well, go to our website, and there's product, and we're a very realistic and aggressive seller. We take a slightly different approach with regards to our marketing of real estate, and that is, ultimately, in this market, we think that regardless of what the appraiser says, the broker opinion says, what our analysis says, that ultimately the buyer and the market establishes price. So, for instance, we may think when we go to the market, we're going to list a deal at 20 million, say, and if we get offers at 15, 16, whatever it is, we're going to sell at that number. So we're very realistic. We do not value enhance. Occasionally we'll hold, but for the most part, we expose it and let the market tell us what it'll sell for.
And Sam, balance sheet in terms of Capmark, what are they doing at this point?
One of your points of the question before, in accessing us or our product, as soon as a asset gets listed for foreclosure, our phones start ringing off the hook to the point where it becomes almost impossible to even answer the phone, otherwise we would never be home. So as Sylvan mentioned, a website, we also have a website. So we're looking at different ways of getting information into the market. everyone within the organization receives phone calls, and the president gets a call from some broker in East Japip, and they say, oh, I got a buyer for your property. We say, well, I just had 50 phone calls, the same type of call, and what we do, we are charged, and as most folks on the panel, to expose the properties to the market. So we respect that you're urgently trying to buy our product, but we would typically list products with brokers and refer all of those inquiries onto them. And as properties get listed, if you go onto our website, there will be a link directly to the listing broker to, one, to get a response back to you and respect your time as well as ours, but also to help, share the load. We are a active loan sale shop, and it's done out of our Denver office. We had a broker license that we've no longer have, so we are starting to use third-party shops to sell our notes, but we have a fair amount of activity right now in the market of exposing some of our assets for a loan sale. We try to look at all the different alternatives and options of what's the best recovery, which is our ultimate charge. And quite often, if you have a jurisdiction with a long foreclosure process that could, such as Manhattan, that could take you 2 years to get title, if we can sell the note in 2 weeks, we would take that course. And as Sylvan said, the market speaks to the value, and it speaks in a greater value than what our appraisals show sometimes, and sometimes less. But we do take everything to the market. We try to be as responsive as we can to phone calls, but rest assured we get so many calls, and when by chance I pick the phone up, most people don't even know what to say. They expect the answering machine. So, and I know people are very respectful of our time, but they still we get flooded. So.
Let's talk about process a little bit. We have discounted payoffs. We have short sales, deeds in lieu, receivership sales, REO sales, mortgagees in possession. Share with the audience, each of you, in a quick moment or two, your internal process these days to determine what direction you're going. Yes, you're getting broker opinions of value. Yes, you're getting appraisals. You're getting third-party reports. But I think for the audience, for people who are out trying to buy assets, or even for borrowers who are in a default position and there's this black hole where no one knows or hears from anyone for 60 or 90 days, or at least that's the perception. What is actually going on during that period of time? What can they do to expedite it? But how are you going through that decision-making process internally? Who's included? Is it the loan? Is it the REO? What exactly, are you talking to the rating agencies? What exactly is your process? Let's start with Andrew.
Well, when an asset transfers in, there are a couple things that we're obligated to do as special servicer under the pooling and servicing agreements that govern all these CMBS transactions. Get the appraisal, get your other requisite third-party reports, environmental, engineering, order your title, and then we'll typically reach out to 2 or 3 brokers and get price opinions from them. Do our internal valuation, which is an effort, a joint effort with the loan asset manager and the pre-assigned REO asset manager. Come up with where we think this asset would trade today. In terms of disposition, we primarily, we'll foreclose, then it goes to the REO person, and they make the decision on whether we hold or whether we put the for sale sign up immediately. In certain jurisdictions and with certain product types, we're going to sell right away, probably through a note sale, where it takes forever to get title, like New York, Ohio, Michigan, et cetera, and where we've got a product that really doesn't have any upside to it. It's a C or D or worse property. We're going to dump it to stop the advancing and to keep our costs down. And then, of course, there's always modifications, which we're starting to see more and more of, surprisingly enough, where people are willing to put more money into the deal where their initial equity's wiped out to try and recapture something. And all that, as I said, is a joint effort with the REO asset manager. And then we have a credit committee process on a weekly basis where the credit decisions are made, and then the asset manager works with counsel to hopefully get it done.
I want to pick up on one thing before we give the rest of the panel. How many in the audience, and I don't want to insult anyone or assume too much, how many in the audience are aware of the advancing obligations and requirements that the special servicers have with the bondholders? Just a raise of hands. Okay, so not even half of you. So Sylvan, for purposes of the group, because, you know, this is not a bank. Okay, this is not a financing, I mean, it was a financing transaction at one time, and it's a security, but at the end of the day, as we talked last night at dinner, it's real estate. And what are the additional obligations? The broker goes ahead and gives you revenues and expenses and CapEx and says, here's your value, throws a cap rate, optimistic, realistic, pessimistic, great. But explain why just that alone doesn't allow you to make a good decision. You have to layer in the additional advancings that you have. And I'm putting aside taxes, insurance, and some of those other things that you're doing. Explain that process to the people in the audience, because it looks like there's a fair amount that aren't quite sure they understand it.
Well, I'll try. Again, I'm
You're
on
really
the
good
REO side, but I can tell you that payments of principal and interest do not stop upon foreclosure. So the servicer continues to make those payments. So if we have a problem asset that may be vacant, whatever, and we're generating negative net income, we're also paying principal and interest payments. So that puts a little pressure on, you know, trying to get something sold earlier rather than later, just for present value. And yeah, there are situations where we take over property and there's, you know, life safety issues or tremendous CapEx, and you know, we'll advance those funds in order to secure a property and, you know, get in a position where it can be marketed for sale. I do want to go back, though, with regards to a point somebody made about foreclosure. I think everybody would agree on this panel that we try to do everything other than foreclose. So if you're a borrower and you're working with the servicer, I mean, just give them every bit of information they ask for, you know, cooperate, do everything that you possibly can. And if there's a way to work something out, most servicers are going to try to do that. Obviously, there are times when foreclosure is the only remedy, and the process within Berkadia would be that the loan guys give me 60-day notice prior to foreclosure. At that time, we'll start talking with property managers, get them on board, and then hopefully have a listing broker engaged within the first 60 days after foreclosure.
So to reinforce that, does everyone understand that interest and principal continually gets paid on a monthly basis, regardless of where the process is, as long as the borrower holds on to the property? There is a cash outflow every month to the bondholders, even while the property is sitting in foreclosure, sitting in default. So, you know, you can go look, and there could be an extra $1 million or $2 million going out the door, and that's what gets taken into account as to how to handle a certain asset. And that's, I think, a very important difference from a bank who goes ahead and makes an accrual entry on their books, and there's no cash outflow outgoing. So, go ahead.
To clarify a couple points, one, it's the master servicer who is responsible for the advances. The special servicer is not responsible for the advances. There's two types of advances. Property protection advances, which are, as Sylvan said, are advances you make to protect the property, health, safety, other types of advances related specifically to property. Then there's principal and interest advance that is advanced by the master servicer. And those advances are made until the special servicer has determined that there isn't sufficient collateral. The theory is that there's sufficient collateral to support advances to a certain point. A lot of the PSAs say, well, you can advance up to 90% of the appraised value, the collateral value. That's been ratcheted way back today because we've seen such a free fall in values. And the last thing that we want to do as a special servicer or any one of the servicers involved in the process is to advance more than you're going to recover. Then the investment grade investors aren't real pleased with that outcome.
Larry?
Aren't the advances first money out, though? So
The master has a priority lien.
So even though there's pressure, they're really protected on that.
Right.
It really all comes down to a net present value calculation when we're trying to figure out the best disposition strategy, where you factor in your property protection advances, your P&I advances, thrown out to wherever you think ultimate disposition is, and that's really what drives our decision at the end of the day. So normally, a modification that works, i.e. brings the loan current again and takes it out and gets us paid at maturity, is the best result, but it's the toughest to get to typically.
If you look at the statistics that are available through the agency, rating agencies, I think Fitch and S&P both published loss experience, loss severity statistics. You'll find that the average loss severity that I saw most recently was north of 50%. And the one that is the most extreme is REO, foreclosing on a property and selling. To a large extent, that's a function of the fact that there's, as I said earlier, there's just a dearth of financing available to finance those types of properties. What we do, which is I think everyone has touched on, we go through and we've done this for the last, going back to the days of the RTC back in the early 90s, we've gone through a very methodical process of considering a range of alternatives which we could pursue in order to optimally resolve an asset. And it could be a discounted payoff, it could be a loan sale, it could be a restructure of the loan, and it could be a foreclosure and sale of the property. So we go through that process with each and every asset and determine which one of those alternatives provides us with the best net present value.
Larry and Sam, picking up on that, why does it take so long?
Why does it take so long?
Why does it take so long to get an answer? I mean, you have the information, you have your broker opinions of value, you have your appraisals, you have your third-party reports, and then you don't hear anything from the special servicer. What is, I mean, we can be talking months, and I've heard it many a times as a receiver, as a property manager, as an investment sales broker. Why is it taking so long to get an answer?
So let me just step back for 1 second. I don't think I answered the question before about how do you get in touch with us. We'll actually take business cards and we'll put you on a list and we'll send an email out. We don't have a website. We'll send an email out to let you know of what's on the market. But like everyone else is saying, it's all going to be widely marketed. So our email will show what properties on the market with websites and contact information for the brokers. In terms of what's taking so long, we do everything we can to shorten up the process, but there are things that need to be done. You're still negotiating with the borrower in good faith, and in the meantime, you're dual tracking where you've started a foreclosure process and started trying to get a receiver in place. Those things take time through the court process, and time is not on our side. The way we look at it is, it's not that bad of a killer for us because it just gives us more time to absorb what exactly we have. And gives us more time to make the decision of whether or not we should cut bait right now, or we have enough of an opinion of the asset to hold on to it for a little longer, to, as I was saying before, get rid of some of the uncertainties and present a better value to the market before we go out. And so far, we've been seeing that we've been, knock on wood, and hopefully it's just good decision making. But we're accretive to the dollars that we're spending to make the property more valuable. We're getting more value than what we're spending.
And Sam, how would that contrast to a balance sheet lender like Capmark Bank, and how you would view the process and operate the process?
Yeah, there are many consistencies there that. Our first objective is not to foreclose and try to come to a more amicable resolution. We're happy to modify and extend, but we don't want to be the only person putting more skin in the game to do it. So in order to have that occur, we try to negotiate some additional equity going into the property to bring it more into balance and get a commitment from the borrower. What we're faced with quite often is all equity is gone in a particular asset. The borrower's not supporting it anymore from a day-to-day operations, so we get keys thrown at us all the time. We throw them back and continue to try to negotiate a better resolution. It's the cursed dual track that gets us a lot and does slow down the process. When I'm in Horsham, I describe it kind of like a two-headed turtle, and two-headed turtles don't live very long, but you're going this way trying to negotiate something with the borrower, you're going this way proceeding with foreclosure, you're going that way doing a note sale. It takes time for us to kind of get our thoughts together. What are we going to do? When you get involved in a property in a non-judicial foreclosure situation where you can have title in 20 days or 30 days, but it takes me that long to get ready to own it, to get a property manager lined up, to get our analysis done on it. And in the meantime, we have the loan asset manager negotiating a DPO with the borrower. So quite often these negotiations, even a deed in lieu, just take an eternity, and they just never get done quickly enough. And I think a lot of these things get into conflict with one another and protract the process.
Don? We have a question. Well, we have a question out there, and we'll get right back to your question.
Yeah, we've got a loan out with one of the larger.
A little bit louder.
We have a loan out with one of the.
A little bit louder. Just kidding. Okay.
We have a loan out with one of the larger mortgage servicers, and we've lived within all of the guidelines that you guys have suggested in terms of providing information, etc. But what we've gotten back is stonewalling or worse. And to the extent, so we've been assigned I don't know what the right term is, special servicer officer related to our loan.
A loan asset manager.
Right. Now, what is the best way to escalate it with that person with being non-responsive or worse?
Eric?
Well, I don't think
We're
that's...
not talking about the deal. We're not talking about who you are. We're just going to talk about the hypothetical process.
We don't tolerate things like that in our office. We want people to get back and be responsive. I would just move it up the ranks with the servicer if you can.
And when you say move it up the ranks, you would ask to
I'd
speak
go to
with
the next
next
level.
to supervisor, his
Yep.
team leader, and so on and so
Yep.
forth. Andy? You're a team leader, is that?
Yeah, agreed. I mean, I won't say it doesn't happen within our shop because we've got a lot of people, a lot of new people, and they don't necessarily make decisions as quickly. But absolutely, I would bubble it up to their boss as many levels as you need to go to get a response.
Sylvan, we talked about that exact situation last night at dinner, where you have what you believe to be a very competent, professional, and educated staff. But you can't be everywhere watching exactly what they're doing. So when you learn of a situation that may take place, for instance, like what we just heard in the audience, any other words of wisdom?
Well, I would suggest that you continue to make your payments, number one. And, but, yeah, there would be nothing wrong with you elevating your concerns. If you're not getting a response, something's wrong. It's either with the asset manager or communication or something, but I would strongly urge you to, I hate to use the word go over his head, but that's in effect what I'm telling you. You need to get to the right guy, and you will get a response.
Well, yes, and that's the frustration. So we're trying to figure out who is the buck stops here first.
Sometimes, I mean, if you go to their website, they'll have some of the other, positions and their responsibilities located, and maybe you can find it that way.
Just for the sake of it, is this particular deal involving any of the organizations that are up here right now? Well, if so, there's someone here. Go ahead and take their advice and talk to them somewhere out there. How's that? Okay? Speed round. Speed questions. Quick answers. Okay? Always difficult for this group, for sure. Which type of property has been the most affected by the economic challenges? One-word answers. Larry?
Office.
Andy?
Office.
Retail, hospitality.
Golf course.
Which type of property has come back the most?
Multifamily.
Agreed.
Multifamily.
Yeah, I would agree.
Office.
Which problem will linger the longest? Which type of property will linger the longest? Larry?
For a property type.
Property type.
Retailer office. That's,
I think retail.
My boss. And then retail.
I would also agree with retail.
Retail.
Okay. Continuing with the speed round, you guys are comedies today, not just rock stars. Which part of the country concerns you the most? And let's break it into very simple. East Coast, West Coast, Midwest, and South.
Midwest.
West Coast.
Michigan, Florida, Texas, Nevada,
Okay.
California, and Arizona.
That's the real answer.
I would say generally the Midwest.
Yeah. Midwest.
Midwest, okay. There, historically, when choosing paths and decisions for a special servicer, the loan asset manager would generally make those decisions. And I'm going back 10 and 15 years when the industry wasn't quite as big. What I have certainly seen in the last 3 years during this recession, which has been an evolution and an education, has been a lot more interaction and a lot more say in the process by the REO manager, who really is a real estate professional, unlike necessarily the loan asset managers who can be finance people, attorneys, generally have not had a chance to go out and see the real estate themselves for various reasons involving the pooling service agreement, the REMIC rules. Talk about how that has evolved within each of your organizations and how has it improved or not improved the process. Start right at the end, Larry.
I've been a sticks and bricks guy for going on 24 years now. So coming on board as the REO manager, when I came on board, I was the only person on the desk, and now there's 5 of us. We're able to provide our good real estate opinion on what we think is going to happen with that particular asset, because somewhere along my travels I might have had exactly that type of asset before. I've had an asset across the street. I have some good experience to help make decisions, and within our group there's no feeling of stepping on toes. It's all communicative. We're all in meetings together. There's no REO meeting and another meeting. We all go to the same meetings together. We hear each other's stories, and we're able to comment on each other's issues.
Andy?
I am not a sticks and bricks guy. You give me a hotel, I can check in and check out. But unless it's the TV thing, that's a little complicated. But I can negotiate a workout. I can run my NPV numbers, and I can write a business case and present it to my committee. But I would say within CW, the interaction of the loan asset manager with the REO asset manager has evolved significantly. And over the past 6 months, it's been almost at lightning speed in our world, to the point now where we're really split into, by and large, into property types. And those splits, there is a senior VP in charge of both a loan and REO team. For retail, for hospitality, for office. And so that the disagreements that we may have had in the past, with regard to value, with regard to is this a good lease or a bad lease, you've got an arbiter for each product type. Before and large, it has speeded up the process and allowed us to make better decisions.
For us, it's really a matter of accountability, and that means that the loan guys, in working with the borrowers, that is where they earn their keep. Once the conversion occurs, then the REO asset manager is really responsible for the success or failure of that property, and therefore we want the REO guy to have a strong say in the selection of the property manager and or broker for obvious reasons. At the end of the day, the asset manager, the REO asset manager, again, is responsible for the success or failure of the deal, so we want to select the vendor.
From our standpoint, it's really a collaborative effort, and we get folks that are focused on REO involved in the process. It's particularly important today because we all, I think, agree generally that we're seeing a recovery, or multifamily is recovering probably or evidencing the strongest recovery, and we've seen that in a couple of situations recently where we've seen rather significant rebounds in value on properties that came in a year ago or 9 months ago, where that market has experienced a significant recovery. And it's important that we stay on top of what's occurring in that market and how that property is performing. So we do involve the folks from our REO group in virtually all the decisions, particularly as it relates to valuing the property.
Sam?
Yeah, our shop is really a coercive group, and at one time, because of the nature of being a balance sheet lender, we essentially serviced all the loans for the bank and Capmark Finance. As it morphed into what it is today, the underwriters who wrote the loans are now loan asset managers, and we get involved on the REO side as early on as possible. We meet with our tax people, legal, and accounting people months before a property would go REO, as it becomes identified that that's the course that it's going. So we prepare to receive it in and monitor the foreclosure process. We'll choose the property manager and go through the RFP process and selection of that and getting them under contract, so that when the event occurs, that we will be fairly intimately involved in the process from the REO side for maybe 30 days prior to taking title, so that we're up to speed on it when it comes in.
Let me add one thing, John, and that is that if you're a vendor and if you work with the loan side, you would automatically be considered for the job once it converts to REO. I mean, we're not going to forget the fact that you've helped our loan guys do either valuations or just whatever it is. So you will automatically be in the mix for an assignment in the conversion.
Another quick speed round. Bigger challenge, maturity defaults or monetary defaults?
Maturity.
I think maturity.
I'd say maturity.
Agreed.
And not yeah.
Not that they don't turn into monetary defaults, but the reality is,
Well, I think
the valuation issue is the bigger issue. Maturity's
Right,
coming up, and how do they refinance and get out?
Right.
The most difficult ones are the ones that are, that have both maturity defaults and they're not covering.
Well, and then, of course, you get into physical condition and code violations, and now you have a whole different litany of issues, or you can even have environmental issues, and that's a problem for the trust to even take the property back without going out and getting environmental insurance. Another quick question. Which jurisdictions, some of you are on the REO side, but which jurisdictions from as you all know, there's judicial foreclosure states, non-judicial foreclosure states. Which jurisdictions today, give me your top 2 or 3 that take the longest period of time to go from filing and you have a default to getting fee simple title? And let's assume the borrower is fighting.
I would say Florida and Connecticut.
New York. and
Absolutely,
Connecticut.
Florida. New York's close behind. Ohio.
Yeah, any state that has redemption periods.
Okay.
Michigan.
So, give you a sense in Chicago. We have 70,000 foreclosure cases today in Cook County alone. And that's not the collar counties, that's Cook County. We have 10 judges that hear those cases. Each judge has 7,000 cases. If, in their words, if the world just today became average, there were no more filings, which of course we all know is not going to happen. They say it would take them 5 years to resolve everything that's out there. The first, the bankruptcy court division in Northeast Illinois, okay, each bankruptcy judge, 5,000 cases sitting in front of them, anywhere from 5 to 7 years to resolve. So when you say, you know, is it the servicer, why are they taking so long? Or is it the legal process? The judicial process is not set up to handle what we currently are involved with. It's not going to happen, and even worse, The resources are not there from the jurisdictions, the counties, the state, even the federal government, to hire more judges, to hire more clerks, to even process this work. In fact, bankruptcy judges today have one law clerk, okay? 5,000 cases and one law clerk. It's an impossibility. Some of these judges are expected to hear 90 cases in a 90-minute sitting, and then come back 3 times later that day and go through another 90 cases at 3 different times. And so, you know, the vast amount of reporting and requirements under the statutes have also changed. There are new laws out in the marketplace that, for instance, you cannot evict a tenant in a multifamily property without first getting approval from your foreclosure judge. How about if you're in a multifamily project or a condo project? You cannot raise rents in some jurisdictions. So let's say you've done a great job turning around the property. You cannot raise rents without getting the approval from the judge to raise rents. So you're at 92% leased, you've done a great job, and you still can't take it to the next level. So, you know, when I first started here in 20 years ago, you know, being a receiver, you know, the thought process was, and they're very smart people, judges were these omnipresent, omnipotent people and knew all of the laws. And unfortunately, they're inundated with mechanics liens and contract disputes and foreclosures, and you're taking judges who are in traffic court or divorce court, and they're bringing them over to different courts, and they're expected to be able to go ahead and rule on these cases. Those are all very important points to keep in mind. Selection process for receivers, property managers, and attorneys. How do you go through that process, Sam, and then right down the line?
Sure. We tailor it to the location of the property and the property type, and over the course of time, essentially accumulate a list of vendors that we have worked with in the past that we feel comfortable, and we would select according to the specific asset which one we felt would do the best job. We do a bidding process and open it up to other vendors, so we don't typically just go with one choice because they bought us dinner last night. So it's opened up to a bidding process to the most qualified persons that we know that could do the job.
What if we played pool together?
That's a different story if you let me win.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure we could bifurcate between dinner and pool.
Yeah.
Eric?
We use the same process. I mean, this is something we've been doing for individually and as a group for the last 20 years. And so we have a list of contractors in different markets that we have worked with. And after assignments, we have a very methodical process of grading them. How do they perform? And kind of keeping that information updated.
So if you're a vendor, a third-party vendor, full service, national, you can be regional, and you want to get into this area of the business, is it too late?
Not at all.
And how would someone go about trying to get in touch with you, since you either have caller ID and know who's calling, or you know you're screening your calls anyway?
We're open. I answer my own phone.
When you're in the office?
When I'm in the office, and or email. Now, we welcome people, you know, providing us with their credentials, with their information, and I think we're always open to considering new service providers.
Okay, Sylvan?
Well, the good news is we do not have any exclusives with any firm, either, whether it be property management or brokerage. I would say that email is probably the best way. You know, be brief, send us your resume or your company profile, and then there's actually a fine line between being appropriate and being a pain in the butt in terms of the follow-up. So, you know, be appropriate, and just know that the servicer needs you. Eventually we'll call you. And as I said, there's no exclusive, so we are very asset specific in how we assign product.
Andy?
Lawyers are a collaborative decision between the loan asset manager and our in-house counsel, geographically being the primary determinant, but where we think the asset's going is also considered. In terms of third-party reports, you can go on our website and register as a vendor. It'll give you an address to send in your information to or to email your information to. In terms of receivers, brokers, property managers, that's all on our REO guys and girls to make those decisions.
Larry?
We have 300 loans or so that have come through special servicing. And each one of those loans, let's say it at least got 3 BOVs done. So it's 1,450 BOVs. We have 33 properties on the market right now, 1,450 BOVs. It's not possible to reward everybody who's done the work up front. But it's never too late. We've certainly have given assignments in the past couple of months that I could think of to people who we just met in the past couple of months. But on the other hand, there is a long line. There are some service providers who have been waiting for 3 years to get that first deal from us, and they've been, appropriately following up and continuing to do work when we ask them we need an opinion. So the way we do it, if we get a phone call and you happen to get me at the right time, I take the time, I listen to what your area expertise is, and if there's something brewing right then, I'll bring your name over to the loan asset manager if they need the help now. Or if there's something that's going to come in, if it's good that you made the phone call. If it's still in my head, I'll remember to bring your name over. There's we have a lot of tertiary located properties that some of the bigger names don't necessarily cover as well. So those if you're not with one of the bigger firms, I think that's what you'd want to concentrate on.
So the broker who's done 10 BOVs in the last 6 months and hasn't gotten an assignment should not say, I'm tired of doing BOVs, don't call me anymore. They should keep doing those BOVs because somewhere down the road, there is going to likely be some business for them.
Yeah, at some point in my career, I was on that side of the table, and I can't imagine why you would ever say, I'm not doing any more for you. But on the other hand, if business is good and they can't do them anymore, that's fine also. We do have a full audience of people, I'm sure, who will help out.
Yeah, one more thing. I know that CW has a vendor registration link on their website. We're working on ours. It's not up yet. So, hopefully we'll have that in the next 3-6 months.
Quickly, because we're running out of time. What's the any new law or statute that CMBS special servicers are required to live by that is causing you the biggest amount of consternation?
Nothing I can think of offhand other than to the extent that we can retain the financing on the property in connection with a sale or disposition of the property, that obviously adds value. And so that's something and that's very jurisdictional specific.
Not a new law, but just the way the whole securitization works. At the end of the day, I think you were talking before about, I know you were talking before about the frustration supposedly of everyone else who are not in our line of business thinking that it's taking a long time to get decisions or to move on. I see it a little differently. At the end of the day, we're not banks, like you said before. We don't have the pressure of quarterly financials to put out, and shareholders, investors, and other rules and regulations that banks and insurance companies have to deal with and make them make non-real estate decisions to get rid of real estate. We have the luxury of being able to take our time and figure out what the right thing to do with the asset is.
Yeah, but within CMBS, there's a kind of little-known fact that we're required to sell every asset within 3 years after it becomes REO, and actually it sounds like a long time. Reality is, for us, the average hold period for our real estate is about 18 months today. 100 years ago, when things were good, it was more like a 9-month hold. So just know that we're under the gun to sell everything within 3 years.
Quick answer, and then we'll see if there's any more questions, and we'll end. Question: are we in a recovery? And if we are, how long do you think it's going to take to get back to an average market? Or alternatively, how much longer do you think the servicers, people like yourselves, are going to be inundated with assets and defaults and foreclosures and things of that nature? I heard 2017. Someone said 2017. Maybe it was on the panel before. Would any of you want to take a shot at agreeing, disagreeing? And I realized if you knew the answer, you wouldn't even be on this panel. You'd be out somewhere else doing something very different.
10 or 12 years might get me close to retirement, so that would be all right. No, I think that, certain markets, this being one, have certainly bottomed and are starting to show signs of recovery. I don't think you can generalize it because so much of the country is still just in horrendous shape in terms of their commercial
So
real
bifurcate
estate.
between class of property, specific location, where cap rates, Fannie Mae financing is available, and you're back to, below 6% cap rates and financing that's below 5%, things like that, where you see apartment deals getting done in Florida in Class A locations, Class A properties. You gotta be very
I think
specific.
New York, maybe you're 2 years. In Vegas, maybe you're 5 to 7.
Anyone else?
I think we're looking at probably a 5 to 7 year horizon. And the one positive thing is we're not making new loans, so we're only working through the ones that we have. So we have a definitive group to look at, and it's a little bit more predictable, I think.
I think we're kind of bouncing along the bottom, and I think we will for some time until we start to see a recovery in job growth.
Sylvan?
I'm hesitant to speak to the future, but I will tell you that if you're interested in buying real estate, go to our website.
Okay. Are there any last questions for this? Yes?
You send the most pathetic sounding letter to the master service you can possibly think of, explaining every reason why if this loan goes into default, it will be a horrible thing for the bondholders. And then they will take it under consideration, and if they feel it's really an imminent default, they'll transfer it in. So that letter is very important. If you know who the special is, you can reach out to them if you have a relationship there. The special can, in certain situations, request that an asset be transferred in. It's somewhat difficult because we don't want to be labeled as fee hogs because we take the loan too soon. But it can be a joint effort if it's a large enough loan and really speed is of the essence.
Any other?
That happens routinely. I mean, but you can't say I've got a loan maturity in 5 years, and I think I'm going to have trouble refinancing it. That's not going to work.
Any other questions? Well, then what I'd like to do is thank all of you up on the panel.